Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be discussing marriage in China, which has a very interesting phenomenon in which women, now everybody knows for a long time, the China, because of the one child policy, people didn't want girls because they couldn't carry on the family name. They couldn't, take care of you as easily when they're older, etc. And so they would find ways to have boys, which meant there was a huge extra amount of boys in China.
Right.
So you would think the demographic that is having trouble finding a partner is boys, right? That would be my assumption.
Right.
So I'll go over how bad things actually are in the opposite direction. We will then get into the common explanations people have, why I don't think they're good, and what a good explanation is.
Ooh.
So at an event in 2025, this was a Shanghai matchmaking event. A mass matchmaking event in Shanghai had nearly 1,000 women who paid a 600 yuan entry fee to attend, but fewer than 50 men showed up.
Ouch.
600 women to 50 men.
This just seems like a bad marketing thing, though, don't you think? No?
No, because you'll see that this happens a lot. Organizers noted that when a single man did appear, he was swarmed like a minor celebrity, with women rushing to compete for his attention. In some cities, similar events have reported 0 male attendees, despite hundreds of women waiting.
Gosh.
In Shanghai, there are plenty of unmarried women coming to my matchmaking events, but hardly any unmarried men. Nowadays, it seems that for every one Shanghai man, there are several, or even over a dozen, women competing. And the women are really desperate. It's not that they don't want a partner. If there are no men, how can they find one? So now, whenever one man shows up, everyone rushes for him. This has been going on for a long time. A few months ago, Shanghai held a rather special matchmaking event with an interesting rule. Every woman had to pay 600 yuan, while men could attend for free. The women expected a flood of male participants, but to everyone's surprise, nearly 1,000 women showed up, while fewer than 50 men participated.
The Gongzhou Singles Fair in 2024, a government-sponsored single fair in Guangzhou, had over 800 women registered, but only 40 men attend, resulting to a 20-to-1 female-to-male ratio.
What is going on, especially considering the population skew?
Yeah, the 20 to 25 saw women lining up to meet the few men present, with organizers noting that the men were quote unquote overwhelmed and left due to the intense attention.
I can't take all these women.
No, too many women, get away.
My God, it's raiding women.
In the Changzhou blind date market, this was in 2023, in Changzhou, a park-based matchmaking event organized by parents saw a significant gender imbalance. Of the 158 profiles posted, 70% were for women.
My Lord.
In Beijing's Valentine's Day event 2024, a Valentine's Day matchmaking event in Beijing organized by a local marriage agency drew 600 women, but 25 men, making it a 24-to-1 ratio. Now, here you might be saying, well, it's because men don't want to get married anymore in China. All right, so we're going to go over 2 polls, right?
Okay.
One poll done by the 2021 Communist Youth League survey found that 44% of Chinese women do not plan to marry, but only 25% of men plan to not marry. So actually, men want to get married at almost double the rate of women. And another poll showed that around 75 to 80% of urban women under 30, this one showed women slightly higher, plan to get married compared to 60 to 70% of men.
Okay.
So in some polls you see it, but it seems that it's either around the same or men dramatically more than women want to get married.
Sure.
So what the F is going on here, right?
Yeah.
And to give you an idea of how important this is demographically speaking, because people don't realize how modern this phenomenon is and how quickly things are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2024, the number of registered marriages in China hit a record low since records began in 1980, falling to 6.1 million couples, a 20% drop from 2023. So 2023 to 2024 is a 20.5% drop. And it's already in 2024 at less than half the number of marriages that there were in 2013.
What is happening?
The number decreased. And if we go sort of year by year to show how quickly this is dropping, between 2023 and 2024, you had a 20.5% drop. Then by, what was it, 2024, the first half, you had another 12.7% drop. Then in the second
So
half, you had
there's an
16.6%.
acceleration taking place because I just figured
Then,
everyone is thinking this too. So I'm just going to say it. Oh, well, because for men in China, it's too expensive to get married. But no,
but
something new is happening. This is
yeah, that
new and
doesn't really
accelerating.
explain it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can go and we'll read into some of the explanations, but the first thing that everyone always says is, well, in China, there's this huge stigma against women who are too old, right? Or
Oh,
women who are, women are supposed to get married young.
yeah.
They're
What are they
supposed to
called?
not be
Leftover
career
women?
oriented.
Yeah.
Yes, it's leftover woman trope. And it's
Mm.
like, even if this stigma were true, okay, the high valued men would secure, because like sleeping around culture in China and stuff like that, like the problems we have in the US, this isn't really that common in China. To give you an idea of what I mean when I say it's rare for women in China to sleep around, one study showed that in China, for women ages 20 to 44, only 6.5% reported two or more lifetime partners, sexual partners, that is. Right? Like it's not common to just like date around and sleep around and the Chad roller coaster whatever thing, right? What with the Chad carousel?
The
Um,
cock carousel.
yeah, it's the
Malcolm.
cock carousel. That's not what's happening in China.
Uh,
So what would happen, right? If the problem was is that men just had a preference for younger women, is the men who were able to secure the younger women, like the women who are actually sane enough to secure their partner while they were still young, would be securing these women. But then the other men, it's not like they disappear. For every woman not marrying, more than one man isn't marrying because there's more men than women in China due to the reasons we talked about before. So the men who were left over would still sort of trickle sort to these lower value older women rather
mhm.
than be alone. But they are choosing to be alone. And then people can be like, oh, well, it's that, and we'll talk about this because economics does play a role. There's a lot of economic expectations on men to get married in China, like having a house, paying the bride price, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, except the problem isn't that women are being too snooty around these men, right? It's
Not
that
if
the
they're
men,
swarming them at these
yeah, it's that the
meetups.
men aren't showing up in the first place.
Oh, they're going hikikomori?
Well, no, I mean they're just not showing up to the dating events at least, right?
Okay,
So
yeah, but,
so
like, in
so
general
if
too?
they were there, like even if they were a lower valued man, presumably they'd have an arbitrage opportunity.
Yeah, totally.
So to continue here. So and to the surplus of men, they have about 30 to 35 million extra men of marrying age.
So whoa, what
So
is going on?
let's go over some wrong theories, but that I think
Okay.
are interesting and worth throwing out there and talking through.
Alright.
Chinese marriage follows strict hypergamy, marrying up in status, but is asymmetric. Women are expected to marry up in income and education, while men avoid marrying down to women who out earn or out educate them. Urban women, empowered by education and careers, now demand partners who match or exceed their status, e.g., college educated women want a man with a house, car, and stable job. But
Mm.
urban men often reject these quote unquote strong women as unfeminine or threatening to traditional roles, preferring younger, less ambitious partners.
Yeah.
A 2019 study, Journal of Comparative Economics, modeled this as equilibrium crowding out high status women's pickiness plus men's aversion to status equals leads to 20 to 30% lower marriage rates for college grads versus less educated women. In surveys, 70% of urban women said they'd prefer a wife earning less than them versus only 40% of women okay with earning less.
Yeah.
Basically, what you're getting here is just pointing out that men prefer a woman who earns less than them, right? And
Yeah, which is also common in Western
in Western
countries.
countries, and you're
Yeah.
not seeing this same phenomenon as exaggerated in Western countries.
Hmm.
So, one, it doesn't really explain it. And two, even if this was a phenomenon, it would be that the men were showing up to these events and then getting turned down. But that's not what we're seeing, right? The men aren't showing up at all, right? And when they are showing up, they're being swarmed. So, that doesn't really make sense with this theory.
Yeah.
Next, the skyrocketing economic barriers theory. Urban marriage requires men to front massive costs. We've talked about this before, with bride prices averaging around $14,000 to $28,000. And keep in mind what you earn per year in China. So that's huge.
Yeah.
Plus wedding expenses,
Right.
with urban property prices up 300% since 2010 and youth unemployment at 15 to 20%. Many men, especially non elite ones, can't afford, with many women thinking you need a house in Chinese customs to buy one and then be eligible. Women holding 40% of urban savings, but often transferring it to in-laws upon marriage, amplify
Oof.
this by demanding financial proof of stability. So when they get married, they send all their money to their family. So they're like, I need you to have financial stability. It doesn't matter for me. Okay. Yeah, this does make sense.
Yeah.
And it is true that marriage rates in China correlate inversely with housing costs, where Beijing and Shanghai, only 50% of men under 30 own a property versus 80% needed for eligibility. But anyway, people are like, okay, so why show up if they're not even going to date you? This might make sense, but are the women really being that picky at the events? We'll get into this in just a second because the answer, a bit of a spoiler, is yes, they are. Even though you get these scenes of men lining up, like women lining up to men, you don't know what they're asking them in those lines. And that's going to be the big reveal here, by the way.
Mm.
And then the final one is the migration theory, right? This is the gender surplus is geographic. Rural areas have 20 to 30% more men due to women's outmigration for education/jobs, while cities have a subtle female surplus among elites, with women being 55% of college grads in China. But a 5% difference doesn't explain the marriage rate thing that we're seeing here.
Right.
Oh, interesting here. Well, okay. So any thoughts before I go further, Simone?
I'm just trying to see what it actually is, because I mean, those other things are definitely a factor. But
Yeah.
also, they've been factors for a very long time. They cannot explain this acceleration.
Exactly.
Something has changed.
So what has changed is what is happening within these marriage marketplaces, right? Like, and
Okay.
it should be obvious. Okay, the men don't want to go on dates. They don't want to go to dating events.
Right.
It must be something that is happening in these environments that makes men not want to go, right? So let's look at what the men are saying about their experiences.
Yes,
So in
please.
one viral Weibo post, a man likened it to a cattle auction where he said, women asked about my salary, my house, and my car before they even asked my name.
Oh.
I'm done.
Oh.
At a Shandong matchmaking event, where is 4,000 singles reported in South China Morning Post, Wang John, a 27-year-old office worker, specified he wanted a partner without younger brothers. He explained to organizers that he feared marrying into a family where he'd be expected to support a male sibling financially, a common cultural expectation in patrimony in China. I can
What?
barely afford my own life, he said. How can I take on someone else's family?
Fair.
Can you imagine that, having to support your wife's younger brother?
Yeah, no thanks. Are they all passport broing?
A lot of them are, which we'll talk about in a second, but not as much. More women actually leave China. Like, it's one of the countries. Remember when we did our episode on like how the incels are stealing all the women from other countries?
Yeah.
China is one of the countries where if you look at migrants out of China, more of them are women than men, which likely means passport broing is a large thing that's happening, but in the opposite direction.
Finally, let's take a look at a high-quality unmarried man from Shanghai and why he still hasn't found his other half.
看见那男生没？看见了。相亲相了30多次，全部失败。
Do you see that man? He's been on over 30 blind dates, and every single one has ended in failure. Some netizens found it strange, saying, he's quite handsome. What kind of economic condition must he have for him to be unable to find a partner? A representative from the marriage agency explained, that's not the case at all. He's a local Shanghainese, born in 1992, employed in a state-owned enterprise, and earns over 300,000 yuan a year. He's about 1.75 meters tall, pretty average, and even has some savings. She went on to say, many girls actually liked him, but the man had his own ideas. He has 10 types of qualities he won't accept. He said, if you can meet my requirements, then I can seriously start a relationship with you with the aim of marriage. But if you don't, I'm sorry. Dating is fine, but marriage is out of the question. Netizens then asked, what are his requirements? 1. He doesn't want a girl who smokes, drinks, gambles, has tattoos, or wears heavy makeup. 2. He doesn't want someone who dresses in a bizarre manner. For example, a girl who in broad daylight wanders around in cosplay. 3. He doesn't want someone who values pet rights over human rights. 4. He doesn't want someone who excessively posts beautified photos or selfies with heavy filters on social media. 5. He doesn't want someone who lives paycheck to paycheck. 6. He doesn't want someone who is overly competitive or overly concerned with comparisons. 7. He doesn't want a girl who goes clubbing, especially those wearing see-through outfits and still shaking it at bars 3 or 4 in the morning. 8. He doesn't want someone who lacks a sense of boundaries, for instance, being overly familiar with men who are already in relationships or having male best friends. 9. He doesn't want someone who's not filial to her parents. 10. He doesn't want someone who expects the man to do everything while contributing nothing herself. Netizens responded, these 10 requirements are very normal. I thought they'd be something else. The matchmaker added, believe it or not, when he presented these 10 requirements at the matchmaking corner, he ended up being surrounded by girls hurling insults at him. They called him an average guy with overblown confidence and told him to look in the mirror. I was really puzzled because it seemed like plenty of girls there actually met those 10 requirements.
Okay.
So at a Shanghai matchmaking event, a 27-year-old male attendee, Cheng Wei, described the experience. He approached several women only to be asked immediately about his income, car ownership, and whether he had a Shanghai Hokoi. I guess that means like home. One woman, a 29-year-old marketing manager, reportedly dismissed him after learning he rented rather than owned his apartment, saying, quote, "Why are you here if you can't afford a home?" End quote. Chen felt humiliated and stopped attending these events. He said, "These women act like they're shopping for a car, not a husband."
Yeah, no kidding. This is horrible.
A lot of this may actually come downstream of how few sexual partners Chinese women have. When you have only 6.5% of the population having slept with somebody else, you have a population that is extremely guarded in who they sleep with and how they date, looking for an extremely high value male. And essentially what you're seeing here is what happens when you have what a lot of Western men wish we had, which was overly guarded females about who they sleep with. When women become overly guarded and that becomes a norm within a culture, you get a cultural norm everywhere around being incredibly prudish, even in terms of who you might marry. At a Beijing's single fair, this is 2024, the Straight Times. So keep in mind, this is all like really modern that is happening and concurrent with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
During a government-sponsored dating event, one 30-year-old engineer, so like a good guy who you should want, right? He spoke to a 28-year-old lawyer who listed her requirements within 3 minutes. A man earning at least 30,000 won a month, or $4,200, owning a car, willing to support her and her parents financially.
Ah!
When he admitted he only earned half that, $2,100 a month, which is still a very decent salary, she walked away mid-conversation saying, "Sorry, I don't have time to waste."
Well, I don't care. I would have walked away if I were him because I'm not supporting anyone.
She walked away. She
I know
walked
she
away.
walked away. I would have walked away if I were him. I would have been glad she walked away if I couldn't. I didn't have the energy from being so shocked by her
He
demand.
says women were unreasonably picky, expecting millionaires only. I feel like to an extent we get this in the United States. It's just that women aren't as transparent or as fast to voice what they're really looking for.
No.
And so you get a little too much pussing around before they're like, actually, I'm only interested in millionaires.
I suppose. It would seem then that women and men are culturally unable to marry in China if they are adhering to normative cultural standards. That this is a culture that has rendered itself, sterilized itself completely non-viable from a marriage market standpoint. That is insane.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? I mean, can the government intervene? Can the government say, "Sorry, we're not doing this anymore"? Like your family cannot expect to be supported by your daughter's husband. This isn't happening anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're still going to expect it. What would you do? What would you do if you were Xi Jinping?
Let's keep going here, by the way.
Okay.
Tanton dating app encounter. So let's say, okay, not just the marriage markets, you got dating apps as well.
Yeah.
A 32-year-old delivery driver, Zhang Bo, shared his experience on the dating app Tantan with Channel News Asia. He matched with a 27-year-old office worker and after a brief chat, asked for his WeChat to see his quote-unquote moments, social media posts to gauge his lifestyle. When Wang Zhou shared photos of his modest apartment, she responded, quote, "You live like that? I need someone with ambition," end quote. Zhang felt her tone was quote-unquote condescending and stopped messaging her. He noted that many women on apps, quote, act superior, focusing only on wealth or status, which made him feel like a failure and quit online dating.
I would too. It's horrible. That's horrible.
I absolutely refuse leftover women over 30. This one's already 32. Why on earth would I marry her?
A reporter asks, but aren't you 35? She's 3 years younger than you, and I've seen that her job is very stable. The man replied, I haven't been unfamiliar with leftover women in my life. Let me tell you, leftover women over 30 all share 6 common flaws. The reporter asked him to elaborate. The young man explained,
First, Having seen the world when they were young, they develop sky-high standards and feel that no one is good enough for them. Second, even though their looks have already started to decline, they still live in the glory of their youth, casually dismissing any man as ugly or unattractive. Third, their fertility is on the downturn, so having children in the future may be difficult. Fourth, their personalities are generally hard to get along with. If they were more amiable, someone would have already swept them off their feet. Fifth, it's not about love at all. It's all a transaction. They immediately start negotiating conditions with you, asking about your car, house, salary, and even whether your parents have a pension. It's all calculated. Six, if they once had a decent boyfriend, they use the standards they set for their ex when choosing the next one, insisting that the new guy must be even better. Have they ever thought that if their ex was so good to them, why didn't they marry him?
The reporter then commented that the young man's views were too absolute, saying, "So you think that all unmarried women over 30 have problems, but you're 35 and still single. Doesn't that suggest you might have problems too?" The young man answered, "If I have problems, I dare to admit them, but would she dare to admit hers?"
Another dating event that had 800 women and 40 men, a 29-year-old salesman. So this is one of the good ones, right? Talked about the encounter and said it made him bitter. A 30-year-old accountant asked him to list his assets within the first 5 minutes of talking. When he mentioned he was still saving for a home, she laughed and said, "Good luck finding someone with those prospects," before moving to another man. So this is at an event where this woman realized there are 40 men and 800 women. She goes to one of the 40 men in one of these lines, and her first thing is list your assets, and then she laughs at him.
Yeah, the level of insanity when you're in the beggar position. Beggars can't be choosers. I can't understand this. Are men and women, do you think, super culturally isolated where they cannot understand how insane they sound? Because I feel like most people should understand this, right?
Well, so keep in mind, in China, most of your friends are going to be of your family network because you have much more closer family ties. And so they may not be as and then in social settings, because it's easy to gender segregate, they really may just not have many male friends outside their families who can correct their expectations. And family members, because they want to be supported, right? They're going to be pushing them.
They're like, "Yeah, get your bag, girl. Oh
get your bag, girl," right? That
makes sense. Yeah. If your only friends are your brother, who also would love the idea of you marrying someone who pays for his video game hikikomori lifestyle.
Yeah, of course he's gonna be like, "Hey, yeah, no, of course this is the right thing to do."
He would be dumb to not. Yeah, he doesn't lose anything for her not marrying, and he has a lot to gain for her marrying someone who does that, who signs up for that scam.
Is they're not making a mistake. They're actually being really shrewd in their dating, in terms of listing what they expect from a partner and then quickly moving on when a partner doesn't have that, right? That's really important. That's what I did when I'm dating. That's what I always recommend that people do when dating. Go out, tell people what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But also the secondary part here is you need to adjust your expectations based on the market dynamics.
Yeah, they don't seem to be responding to feedback. Maybe they don't have a shot at feedback, considering how few men are even
I just don't I just don't see how you could be in an event with 800 women, 40 men, look around, be in a line to talk to one of these men, see all of these women clamoring over these men, right?
Yeah.
And then not be like, I am the one on the back foot here.
Mm-hmm.
It's women have become a way in this country where nobody wants us. Right? More broadly, it's her wider category of human that is uninteresting to these men.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of this matchmaking scene turned into a textbook example. Today, a couple came into our agency for a blind date. After they sat down, the man immediately asked a woman, "How much do you earn per month?" She said, "A bit over 8,000 yuan. Then the man said, "Your family must be quite well off, right?" The woman replied, "Just average. My parents are ordinary." The man then asked, "Have you bought a house?" She answered no. After hearing that, the man said, "Then let's not talk any further. I've got something to do." The young woman was a bit baffled and said, "You start by asking about my income. Are you really here for a blind date?" The man responded, "It's not like that. I just think we're not a good match, so let's not waste our time." Then the woman asked, "What exactly is wrong with us?" The man replied, "If you really want to know, I'll tell you. As soon as I walked in, I noticed your bag cost tens of thousands of yuan, yet your salary is only about 8,000. Moreover, you're renting, a shared apartment perhaps, where the rent is about 1,000, food costs about 1,500, and utilities plus other expenses add up to roughly 1,000. And on top of that, you still have to buy clothes. Honestly, your clothes aren't cheap either. So can you really manage to save 1,000 yuan a month? I'd say even 1,000 yuan is too much for you to save. Given all that, the only possible explanations for you having a bag worth tens of thousands of yuan are these. Either someone gifted it to you, in which case, why would they give you such an expensive bag? Or you bought it on credit. Am I supposed to help you pay it off? Or third, the bag is fake. If you can't afford the real thing, then there's no need for you to buy one. But insisting on buying a fake just doesn't sit right with me. The young woman, clearly indignant, said, "Can't I just save up for a year or two and buy a bag I really like?" The man replied, "If you're scrimping every month just to buy that bag, then we're even less compatible." And then the young woman almost burst into tears from anger.
By the way, I gotta say, I agree with the man's shrewdness in this particular story. I think that this was the right approach. People who like luxury items can make your life miserable really, really quickly. And who will, because of, if she is, going through periods of austerity to get a luxury item like this, she's going to demand that you do the same because she has a taste for this sort of stuff. Whereas a sane person is just like, it's just a bag. Like, why would I want that except to signal to other people or to myself that I am X type of person? And if you need to signal that to yourself, you're going to need to do that throughout your entire life, and you're going to need more and more to do that. If you want to go through some other theories here, which I think are closer to accurate,
Okay.
we have the lying flat theory. Urban
Yeah.
men are increasingly rejecting marriage itself, not just events, due to changing values. The rise of lying flat and anti-consumerist movements among youth reflects disillusionment with traditional milestones like marriage, which is seen as a financial and emotional burden. Women, despite embracing independence, 44% don't plan to marry, still face stronger social pressure to wed, driving them to events. And that might be another thing that we're seeing at these events.
Oh, they don't actually want to get married.
They don't actually want to or plan to get married. They're sort of forced to be there. And so they don't mind walking around and insulting men at these events.
Oh, that could explain these insane demands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they make more sense as insane demands of someone who would be happy to live alone anyway. But sure, if someone's going to pay for this and that and the other thing, I guess I'll get married. But then if not, yeah, no interest. That totally makes sense.
Event accessibility and design. So this is another problem that they don't often talk about in these articles where they complain about these events. Matchmaking events are often structured in ways that deter men. For example, high entry fees like 600 won in Shenzhen, strict screening, e.g. income and education, so you can't even get in if you're looking to use this as an arbitrage opportunity,
Wow.
or public formats, e.g. parents posting profiles, which favor women who are more willing to pay/invest due to social stigma. Men, especially non-elites, see these as elitist or rigged status competitions.
Yeah, well, and I could imagine someone thinking in principle when setting these events up, well, we have men must be more desperate because there are many more men than women, therefore we will charge them more, and not really understanding, not reading the room, and then charging them a lot more. So that could also,
I think you can continue to charge if women fail to see that they are the problem, right? Like, and this is civilization ending for China with their current fertility rate, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is astronomically bad.
It's
And it appears that where you're only getting strong marriage rates is in rural regions where you have the less technologically and economically productive populations of China, which is going to eventually bring China back to its previous poverty, right? If those are the only cultures within China that continue to breed,
Yeah.
especially if everyone was in these rural environments who gets educated, moves to cities, which then act as fertility grinders, which creates a dysgenic, i.e. it rewards and well, I'll put it the other way. It punishes the genes that lead to higher educational attainment and higher income attainment.
and
right?
ambition and risk taking, a lot of the things that help countries become wealthy. Yes.
Yeah. how would I fix this in China? I mean, I think one thing that could easily be done to fix this and would be cohesive with China's ancestral culture
Mhm.
is to move to a polygynous marriage style where wealthy Chinese men marry multiple women. If women just aren't going to consider men who aren't wealthier than them, then what you should do is have, 2 to 3 women for every one of these wealthy men, and they'll be able to support the additional kids anyway, so they're likely to have even more kids.
Outside of emperors having lots of courtesans, was that common with other wealthy Chinese men historically?
I could try to check it
Having
in
multiple
post.
wives?
Here is what Grok has to say. Polygamy, is particularly a man having multiple wives, was common in Chinese history, especially among the elite. In ancient China, from the Shang to the Zhao, this was 1600 to BCE to 256 BCE dynasties, kings and nobles often had multiple wives and concubines to secure alliances, produce heirs, and display wealth. The practice was codified in Confucian texts, which emphasized family hierarchy and male authority. For example, the Book of Rights outlined rules for men of different ranks to have a primary wife, Qi, and a secondary wife or concubines, Kui. During the Han and Tang dynasties, polygamy remained widespread among emperors, aristocrats, and wealthy merchants. Emperors maintained large harems, sometimes in the thousands of concubines. The Song and Ming dynasty, so we've gone from 206 BCE now to 1644 BCE. They saw stricter social norms, but polygamy persisted among the gentry. A man could take an additional wife or concubine for reasons like producing male heirs or enhancing status. By the 19th to 20th centuries, Western influence had reduced this.
Yeah, I mean, in like the dramas, of course, it only shows up like within the walls of the Forbidden Palace. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know,
but that could be an option and would be cohesive potentially with Chinese sort of ancestral ethics. Not what I would prefer for my kids, not what I would opt for my family, but I'm going to be honest, it seems more realistic adopting to a culture where males take multiple wives than adapting to a culture where women expect less of men. Because that's
right.
hard to do, right?
Yeah.
And the other positive thing about moving to this system is it would have positive genetic effects instead of dysgenic effects.
Yeah.
Because the men with the strongest gene, like more men would wash out of the gene pool, which would cause social disharmony, which isn't great. But you already have that degree of social disharmony, and social disharmony matters less if it's coming from the least economically relevant players in society.
Yeah.
Social disharmony matters more when it's coming from larger economically relevant players.
Well, right, because that's where the state's going to feel the hit. It's
Yeah.
all about what's happening with the money bags.
The other option is very obvious option is ban. You could create a government regulations that make it harder to move up and stuff like that if you're not married, just put a higher pressure on marriage,
Oh,
right?
just forcing it.
Or heavy taxes if you're unmarried after a certain age or something like that, which
Yeah.
basically forces the question. The next is to change cultural expectations about what happens within married, i.e. governments banning bride prices and taking care of the elderly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then again, they kind of need someone to take care of the elderly, considering that they're not going to be able to.
Well, the government does have its murder van for people who break the law that they did that ad for that we've shown in a previous video where they drive around and they're like, if you break the law, we'll come to your house and we'll just euthanize you in a van.
Yeah, maybe
On
they
the
can
go,
do what
efficiency.
Canada did with their euthanasia program, just with their mobile vans.
You do it for the elderly, right?
Kick it up a notch.
Yeah. The moment you run out of money as an elderly individual, the murder ban comes to your house. That's what China could, and that's not out of feasibility for China.
When I was living in China for 10 years, I mean, I knew that there were death vans in China, but it was always one of those dark things that lived in conversation, not necessarily in real life. But China's death vans or execution vans, these cars that just show up and execute you for stuff that I'll explain to you later, and they take you away forever, they're real. They're very, very real. The crazy thing is that they want their citizens to know about the vans, and they really, really want them to feel scared. I'm not kidding. Not only does this death van pull up and take your life, it's being promoted.
They probably do it in some more discreet way or say that like you're doing your civic duty or something. The other thing that they could do is ask women to be less picky. and find a way of socially punishing women who act like this at events or who think like this, right? Like women should feel embarrassed to have these types of expectations, in the way that in the United States there has been a big campaign basically to make women embarrassed about having these expectations through, huge amounts of YouTube videos that go into this and stuff like that. I mean, you've seen this, right? Like you would know in the US, because even as a woman, you're going to be exposed to some amount of like red pill MGTOW content. And you're going to be like, oh, I don't want to be like one of those idiot women who they like interview outside of a club who, have completely insane financial expectations and all want a guy who's 6 foot or whatever.
Right.
But anyway, thoughts?
I think all those are feasible. I do think that if someone tried to regulate things like bride prices and expectations around paying off family members, people would just circumvent that. I feel like there's some stuff you can't really outlaw. People will do it anyway. We might just need to skip a step and have China just start to make children of the state. In a way, it's they're better off for it because they're 100% their kids. They can raise them fully indoctrinated. They already have experience building infrastructure where they own people and educate them in camps.
Yeah.
With the Uyghurs, for example, they would just do this and presumably be a little nicer, but maybe they don't feel like they have to be. But I feel like given this additional information, I thought China might wait a while to do that. But now I feel like it's getting to a point where it may make sense for them to just offer women, gestational surrogacy payment and then just take the babies and raise them.
But as a state?
As a state, yeah.
Yeah, and then you could better
They have
indoctrinate them, I
dormitories, they
suppose.
have schools, they train them for whatever jobs. I mean, because then as the state, you will be able to shift your education system on a dime for your state children to educate them for whatever it is you need as the global economy shifts. So if suddenly you need more people who are really good with energy infrastructure, immediately you are shifting all the schooling.
Yeah, and they grew up energy as everything. You grow up being trained to be an engineer from a young age, right? Like,
yeah, you just have so much more control. And I think ultimately China wants that level of control over its citizens. Why not just, I mean, this kills several birds with one stone. And I feel like that could...
Your dystopian solutions. I love it.
Well, I'm just thinking about what would actually work to maintain stability in the country.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the things is for generations across almost every human society, women have done a service for the state for free, which is having and raising kids.
Yeah, and I mean, this would just be making it fair. We will pay you to be a gestational carrier and then to give your child to the state, and we will give your child.
No, but the point I'm making here is that I think that people haven't realized how twisted it is for the state to expect individuals within a country to bear the cost of both risking your life to have the next generation of taxpayers and then you investing in raising the next generation of taxpayers when they expect to reap the rewards of that.
Yeah, it makes sense for the family to take on the burden when the family reaps most of the reward. At this point, and this is an interesting thing, I haven't really thought about this way before, but you pointed out something really big. What has also shifted after the Industrial Revolution, and especially with the rise of social services and like a largely socialized state, is that now the government reaps the vast majority of the benefit from new people being created. That's crazy. Yeah, because what do parents get?
It used to be
in the United States, you don't get old age care, you don't get workers. You get the satisfaction of watching your children flourish, which now is happening at lower and lower rates because youth is struggling. So
yeah, no, as a parent, you used to get workers for the farm. You used to get a little person you could send to a factory who would work for you, and then
you had old age care.
And you had old age care, right? None of that exists anymore, and the main benefit of having kids is the state, the main beneficiary.
Yeah,
I didn't consider that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, so then China is going to have to just create its. I mean, when when the primary beneficiary, yeah, I guess in the end, in most economies, it has to be the person who wants the product pays for the product. And we see an economic failure here when the thing that wants the product is unwilling to pay for it. And obviously now the product is going out of stock. No one's making it anymore because, you know, no one's willing to pay for it, I guess. That's wow. Well, that changes the way I look at things. But yeah, that's what I would do. If I were Xi Jinping, I would already be looking to where I'm going to set up the dormitories, the schools, the infrastructure. It's all there. I mean, I'm sure there are regions
that you think like Xi Jinping and you go at this like an autistic woman where it's like, if I was Xi Jinping, well, I just demand that I have to impregnate every woman in the country who doesn't get married. I'd go the Elon strategy, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know where the state would source sperm. I imagine they would just choose like in by whatever measure, like really high performing men. They wouldn't even need necessarily to pay them for it because I think men would just be like, this is great. They'd need to pay the women. But yeah, we don't need to wait for artificial wombs for this to be something that especially the Chinese state would do at scale. You could just take a region that's rapidly depopulating, take over its entire hospital, make the entire thing for maternity. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Have a spectacular day, Simone.
I love you, Malcolm. Oh my gosh, China.
China is effed. Is like genuinely effed.
It's terrifying. Yeah. Congratulations on RFAB. It is.
Yeah, rfab.ai. If anybody wants to check it out now, it used to be like a terrible site in terms of what we were putting together.
Well,
and then
come on.
But no, it was not like fun to play around with. Like a bunch of things were broken. Now I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to learn to vibe code. I'm going to try to push this project forward as fast as I can. After like 2 weeks of working on it, you'd say, Simone, while I was traveling, while we were shooting with HBO, I was able to, it was a huge help from Bruno, get a really, I think, sort of high quality AI chat adventure thing out. So if people want to check that out now, it'll get better every week. Like
it's a lot better, I would just say, than any of the other mainstream AI chat apps you'd had me try. So I'm impressed. Even at this early stage, if you want a better one, just go try this out.
The two sections that are really working well are the adventure mode and the not safe for work mode. So try that out. The adventure mode is the one that we've put the most time into. So try it out. Anyway. But so really, like when you checked it out, did you check out like the narrative engine maker and stuff like that yet?
I haven't tried that. I only tried the like pre-made.
It basically allows you to create like complicated multi-pass AI engines for more complicated types of scenarios that you wanted to make yourself.
That is delightful.
Which I think is really fun as sort of a concept for people to play around with.
Yeah, no, it is objectively fantastic. I love it.
Actually, I just had an idea for a feature I want to add. Pair engine with scenario for more complicated scenarios. I plan to make one for like battles and stuff like that, which I'll put together, and one for like city management, so we can have different types of AIs running on it, which I'm quite excited about. But yeah, things move so fast when I'm the one being the grunt work, right?
It's pretty freaking great.
Well, yeah, I love that I have a new skill. I can code now. That's awesome. Anyway. Torsten, did you just say come down to try to hurt Daddy? Why do you want to hurt Daddy? Because it's funny. Do you know that people think that I hurt you, Toasty? People think Daddy hurts you? Why do you think they think that?
Because it's so funny when you hurt me, so I didn't do it, and it's so funny.
Okay, and you're gonna try to hurt me too, Titan, now? Ah! What are you doing? You made it. Ow! That's hard. Ah! No, wait, Titan. We're just trying to have a conversation here. Oh my God! Torsten, why? Eat too, Torsten. Oh my god! Why do you want to hurt me, Titan? Ah! Ah! Oh my god, that hurts! You're a maniac! Every one of you! Oh my god! Ow! Who taught you that? Titan, what are you doing, you maniac? All right. Oh! Titan! Wow! Oh, beaten you up, Titan. Oh my gosh, that hurts so bad, Tosi. No, you can't jump from there. You will certainly die.